60 miles inland on the Antarctic ice shelf, thousands of emperor penguins stand frozen in the dark, silent, waiting. Each guarding an egg that would die in minutes if it touched the ice. So they huddle together, starving, exhausted, barely holding on. This shouldn't work. Nothing should survive this. No mammal, no bird, no complex life should be able to fast for 4 months in the coldest place on Earth while incubating an egg in hurricane-force winds. But emperor penguins chose it. This huddle is where the story begins. But it is only one piece of a much larger cycle. A cycle that spans thousands of miles, involves 6 major species, and unfolds across one of the most demanding ecosystems on the planet. A place with no soil, no trees, no land predators, and half a year of total darkness. Yet every year, more than 12 million penguins return here to breathe. They walk, slide, and swim thousands of miles to reach the same patch of ice they left the year before. This film is not about cute animals in tuxedos. It is about the hardest routine survival job on Earth, performed by birds that cannot fly in air, but fly underwater better than almost anything alive. In this episode, we will follow them through their annual cycle. The frozen continent that tries to kill them, the ocean that feeds them, the colonies that both protect and exhaust them, and the quiet changes now threatening the entire system. This is the impossible life of penguins. Antarctica is at its core a desert. The driest place on Earth, even well buried under ice. In the interior, less than 2 in of snowfall each year. What does fall never melts? It stacks, compresses, and slowly becomes part of an ice sheet that reaches 2 m thick. Winter averages around -40 degrees Fahrenheit. But temperature alone doesn't explain the danger. Winds often race past 60 miles per hour, pushing wind chills near -00 degree F. At that point, exposed skin freezes in under 2 minutes. The body begins to fail almost immediately. The ice itself adds another threat. It never stops moving, grinding, buckling, breaking apart as seasons shift. Fast ice, the sea ice locked to the coast, can vanish from one year to the next. Pack ice drifts with currents. Icebergs cave from glacier and float north until warmer water eats them away. Nothing here holds still. Yet life breeds in this instability. Antarctica supports the largest penguin colonies on the planet. Emperor penguins gather in tens of thousands. This is a place where life should fail. Yet penguins remain. Not by chance, but by an ancient bargain with evolution. Every feather, every dive, every huddle is a compromise with the cold. They survive Antarctica's cruelty, but only by paying a price almost no other creature is willing to afford. While other animals escape to the ocean or migrate toward warmth, emperor penguins do the opposite. They begin their breeding cycle when Antarctica is at its most hostile. They move inland just as the sun disappears and temperatures fall toward their yearly low. For most species, winter is something to endure. For emperors, it's the only moment when life can start. The logic is harsh but exact. When sea ice reaches its maximum extent, the ice sheet becomes stable enough to hold a colony of tens of thousands. They need that platform, broad, flat, and out of reach of ocean predators. If they waited for summer, the ice would break apart. Their chicks would hatch into open water. So, they travel early. In the dark, long lines of penguins leave the coast and walk toward a breeding site that looks empty to us, a plain of ice that stays frozen just long enough to raise a chick. Each female lays a single egg. One chance, one life. The handoff to the male must be flawless. If the egg touches the ice, even for a moment, it freezes. After the transfer, their paths divide. The females head back to the ocean to feed. The males stay behind, holding the eggs through the darkest and coldest months. And this is where their real ordeal begins. For 4 months, the males stand in darkness, fasting and incubating. Their metabolism slows, their fat reserves shrink. Their weight drops to nearly half of what it was. Meanwhile, the storms grow stronger. To survive, emperors rely on one of nature's most elegant solutions. The huddle. This isn't a crowd. It's a shifting structure. Penguins move in slow waves, rotating positions so no bird stays on the exposed edge for long. There's no leader. The group keeps itself alive through constant, gentle motion. Inside the huddle, the temperature can climb to almost 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Just inches away, the wind may be minus 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Life survives in that narrow seam between warmth and lethal cold. Each male keeps his egg balanced on his feet, hidden beneath a fold of skin. If it slips, it dies. So he stands completely still, holding that position through wind, hunger, and the pressure of the huddle. Day after day, months pass, light returns, winds weaken, and from beneath the male's feathers comes a faint sound. The first calls of newly hatched chicks. The males are exhausted, barely upright. The females, still at sea, are feeding and building strength for their return. When they finally come back, they do something remarkable. They locate their partner and chick in a crowd of thousands, guided only by a unique call that cuts through the noise. Once the chick is transferred safely, the starving males begin the trek back to the ocean. After more than 100 days without food, even this final walk is a test, and not all survive it. Those that do reach the water dive immediately, refueling in the brief Antarctic summer. Their hardest phase is over. But for the newly hatched chicks, born into the coldest place on Earth, the struggle is only beginning. The ice is loosening. The ocean is waking. The orbit shifts. The planet tilts. And slowly, almost reluctantly, the light returns. It begins as a thin blue line along the horizon, then spreads into a pale glow that softens the ridge of the ice. Day by day, the sun climbs higher. The cold doesn't disappear, but it loosens its grip. Shadows shorten. Colors return. The continent begins to breathe again. As the light strengthens, the ice responds. What was once a continent-sized fortress starts to retreat, cracking along its edges, thinning from beneath. The sea reclaims what winter had stolen. And with the melt comes the first hint of movement, a quiet stirring beneath the surface. Antarctica summer isn't warm, but it is alive. Beneath the breakup of sea ice, sunlight floods into the water for the first time in half a year. Millions of microscopic plants, phytoplankton, burst into bloom. They multiply so quickly that the ocean turns green in swirling patches visible from satellites. This explosion of life becomes the foundation of the entire Southern Ocean food web. Following them is krill. Billions of krill. Few ecosystems on Earth rely so completely on a single small creature. The timing is everything. Krill need the thaw. Predators need the krill. And the penguins, they need both. As the ocean wakes up, the coastlines erupt with activity. The first to appear are the Adelie penguins. Small, bold, and built for speed on land. They return to rocky shores cleared of winter snow and begin building nests from pebbles, one stone at a time, stolen and rearranged in a constant negotiation of territory. A little farther north, Gen 2 penguins arrive from feeding trips that carried them far out to sea during the winter. They prefer ice-free shorelines and will travel long distances to find them. Their breeding season is more flexible, more responsive to the shifting environment. Chinstrap penguins appear in clusters on the islands and peninsulas where summer is short but predictable. Their name comes from the thin black line under their beak, but their survival comes from precision. They time their return to match the peak of krill abundance. Too early and the chicks starve. Too late and the adults do. Everything, every nest, every migration, every hatch is calibrated to the pulse of the ocean. And the ocean is filling quickly. Seals slip between patches of broken ice, hunting in waters that were frozen solid weeks before. Leopard seals patrol the edge of the melt, waiting for young penguins to enter the sea for the first time. Their heads rise like shadows, scanning for movement. Giant petrels circle above the coast, opportunistic and relentless. And beneath the waves, orcas cut through the water with sweeping precision. Different groups specialize in different hunting strategies. Some target seals, others chase penguins, others coordinate in packs to create waves that wash prey off the ice. They are the ruling predators of this ocean. And the summer melt gives them the freedom to roam. For most species, this is the season of abundance. A brief window when the ocean is generous, when prey is plentiful, when the ice is navigable. But inland, none of this matters yet. Because far from the coast, the emperor penguins are still standing on frozen ground, holding newly hatched chicks against the last of winter's cold. Their world is weeks behind the rest of Antarctica. And these two timelines, the coastal summer and the inland winter, rarely align perfectly. It is one of the reasons penguins across Antarctica live such different lives. Their strategies are written not just by biology, but by geography and by the rhythm of ice and light that shapes every living thing here. What happens next depends on where the penguins choose to live. And nowhere is that more dramatic than a remote island chain more than 1,000 miles from the continent. A place where summer doesn't just return, it explodes. This is South Georgia, a sub-Antarctic island that feels almost generous compared to the continent to the south. Here, the summers are longer, the waters richer, and the ocean floor rises in a way that pulls nutrients upward. Cold currents collide with warmer ones. Upwellings churn the deep. The result is one of the most productive marine environments on Earth. A supermarket for every predator, scavenger, and seabird within reach. And at the heart of it all, on a narrow strip of coastline called St. Andrews Bay, stands one of the largest king penguin colonies on the planet. From a distance, the colony looks like a single living surface. A dense tide of black, white, and gold. Up close, the scale hits you. More than 500,000 king penguins pack the beach, the plain behind it, and the slopes rising toward retreating glacier. Their calls blend into a rolling metallic roar. Thousands of parents and chicks trying to locate one another in the noise. South Georgia is nothing like the emperor world we left behind. Kings don't march inland. They don't incubate eggs through darkness or weather storms inside packed huddles. Their strategy revolves around a landscape where the ocean never slips out of reach. King penguins breed on bare ground. No ice, no platforms, no winter survival trials. Their nests are simply small clearings in the crowd. And their breeding cycle is slow. It takes more than 14 months to raise a single chick. Some pairs skip breeding years because the cycle stretches across seasons. In the time one emperor chick can hatch and fledge, a king chick may still be growing its first proper feathers. This long timeline works for one reason. South Georgia offers something Antarctica can't. Stability. The ocean stays accessible year-round. Food remains plentiful across most seasons. The climate, while harsh, doesn't swing between extremes as violently. But stability is not safety. The colony moves like a city. Adults shove and negotiate for space. Chicks form crushes. Huge shifting groups of brown downy juveniles who huddle together while their parents hunt offshore. These gatherings are loud, restless, and constantly rearranging as hungry chicks push forward, hoping their parent is the next to return. Adults dive into the surrounding waters after lanternfish, squid, and krill, the fuel that drives the entire system. And where life concentrates, predators follow. Skuas stalk the colony edges, watching for eggs and unattended chicks. Giant petrels glide overhead, scanning for weakness. Along the beaches, fur seals and elephant seals wait for any penguin that hesitates at the wrong moment. Offshore, orcas slice through feeding grounds with coordinated hunts that push penguins into deeper, riskier dives. King penguins survive this not through the endurance trials seen in emperors, but through numbers, mobility, and the sheer productivity of the waters they depend on. Their wager is straightforward. Raise chicks slowly, feed them well, and hold on long enough for the next season to begin. Antarctica may be a continent of ice, but the outer reaches of the Southern Ocean tell a very different story. A patchwork of islands, cliffs, grasslands, and rocky beaches, where penguins build lives in places that look impossible at first glance. These are not the enormous emperor breeding grounds or the packed king penguin colonies of South Georgia. These are smaller, fragmented worlds, warmer, wetter, steeper, stormier, and changing faster than anything farther south. Yet, this fringe is where most penguins actually live. They stay away from the interior. They avoid long, dark winters. They survive by adapting to whatever the edge throws at them. Here, evolution has to be flexible. Farther north, the coastline turns into steep wind-carved cliffs. This is rockhopper territory. Their approach to survival is simple but daring. Leap through violent surf, scale the rocks, and nest on ledges that seem almost impossible to reach. The effort is worth it. Cliffs give rockhoppers protection from most predators. Big waves can't reach their nests. Cold, nutrient-rich waters lie just below them. Rockhoppers don't rely on sea ice or predictable weather. They rely on their agility, a trait that lets them live in places no other penguin would dare. Their survival depends on constant motion and quick decisions. And for now, that agility keeps them ahead of the changes happening around them. Then the landscape shifts again. The Falkland Islands look almost gentle compared to Antarctica. Rolling hills, tall grasses, peat soil, and long beaches. Several penguin species overlap here, and each one uses the land differently. Magellanic penguins dig burrows into the soil, raising their chicks underground. In good years, though, the Falklands give them something rare. A longer, milder summer that makes raising young far easier. Gentus and rockhoppers share these coasts, too. Each carving out space in the mix of grass, rock, and beach. Across other island chains, the South Sandwich Islands, the South Orkneys, penguins deal with a new combination of steep terrain, shifting ice, and unpredictable storms. Macaroni penguins dominate many of these places. Their colonies cling to wet, sloping ground that seems too unstable to raise chicks. Yet somehow thousands make it work. Today, the Antarctic Peninsula is warming at a pace that surprises even scientists. Glaciers shrink. Snow patterns shift. Areas that once froze every winter now remain open water, while beaches that used to stay stable crumble early in the season. Penguins react immediately. Adelie penguins, often seen as classic ice birds, once filled the northern peninsula. They depended on predictable sea ice for feeding and steady summers for nesting. But when the ice freezes too late or breaks too early, their entire breeding schedule falls apart. Many colonies have shrunk simply because the environment no longer follows the rhythm they evolved to rely on. Gentus, however, see opportunity. They prefer open water and adjust quickly when conditions change. As the peninsula warms, Gen 2 colonies keep moving south, settling into places that were once too cold for them. Their spread shows how quickly wildlife can shift and how quickly the world around them is shifting, too. Chin straps fit somewhere between the two. They nest on rocky slopes scattered across the region and are strong, efficient hunters. But their dependence on krill ties their fate tightly to the health of a single resource. When krill numbers fall, chin strap colonies thin out with them. The peninsula becomes a lesson in contrasts. Decline for some, expansion for others, all happening at the same time. The stress looks different for each species, but the direction is the same. The Southern Ocean is changing faster than many penguins can adapt. Some will shift into new ranges. Some will survive by changing behavior. Some may disappear from places they once dominated. Penguins have always lived at the edge of what the planet allows. But now the edge itself is moving.